No, you don't want to play. Right. Here, closer. Here, over here. Over here.
I am a loser like my mother. I am literally repeating that dumb bitch's existence, and there's nothing that I'm going to do about it to change it. She spent her life believing that she is multi-talented. She thought herself an exceptional chef. You've seen videos of what she prepares. Her cooking is a product of laziness and insanity put together. The few times she'd gone to a steakhouse against her will, she would loudly complain about how terrible restaurant quality food is compared to her cooking, just to make sure that the waiters hear that. She even imagined she could open her own restaurant. The level of delusion is off the charts. She also thinks she's good at sewing clothes. She would make a dress that would literally be a baggy tube of fabric for the torso, and then two baggy tubes for sleeves. Then she'd tie a rope-like thing around the waist to give the dress shape. Instead of having two seams down the sides, like all the normal shirts you buy in the store, because that's too much work, she would opt for one seam down the back, and it would look like fucking Frankenstein monster stitches. Because why bother with two seams when you can lessen your work with just one? All her work is not just that of a struggling artist trying to perfect her craft, or even that of a dabbler or a hobbyist. Even a hobbyist would take more pride in what they do, even if they're not making money off of it. But her work is just like an I don't give a fuck or I'm trying to make everyone laugh type effort. Except there is a delusion involved that it's all actually good, which is what makes it so sad. She's also lazy, ungrateful, and claims to be physically weak, so she has worked in actual employment, maybe a total of 2 or 3 years of her entire life. You should be starting to see the parallels between me and her. Her whole life was spent just sitting around, blaming the men in her life for her problems, and at the same time seeking a man to take care of her, so she can just live a life of leisure. She just literally twiddled her thumbs. She would occupy herself with knitting and sewing and cooking awful food to pass the time instead of working a career. And her elderly mother, who is overdue for the grave, is her only best friend in life. Because she's so annoying, she doesn't listen to people and she just rapidly talks without taking a breath to anyone who was unfortunate enough to be drawn into hearing her, that there is literally no person outside her elderly mother who voluntarily would wish to spend time with her. And that's kind of how I was in high school. I would act in a way that would make very few people voluntarily wish to be around me, because I also irritated and annoyed people in my own way by being a troll. I also fancy myself as somehow talented, because I'm writing a book and I'm making those stupid drawings and I'm running a YouTube channel. But it does make one wonder if I am just as deluded as she. Look at the number of the customers of my channel. How many customers would her restaurant have if she could open one? I bet the only customers would be a handful of people who patronize it out of morbid curiosity. Morbid curiosity. How many customers does my James Grider book have? None. Onision's shitty-ass book has more customers. So what does it all say about the quality of what I create? It says that the quality is pretty much nil. Another thing is, my mother loved buying clothes excessively, wasting tons of fucking money. This is while I had to wear the same stinky jacket to high school every day. This is all while I was afraid to ask for things I needed for school. Well, what happened now is I slipped into this same obsession with buying clothes, just like she. I have more t-shirts and tank tops than I need. I couldn't be satisfied with just having 2 sweatshirts. I needed 5 or 6. And I also sit here putting out inferior creations, just like my mother, as a way of giving my pathetic, worthless life some value. She fucked like one guy in her life to produce me, who did not want to stay around. And then more than a decade later she found another man who somehow tolerates her bullshit. And that was it for her relationships. Because like I said, willingly, people don't want to be around her, don't want to have sex with her, unless she corners people. Then they stand nodding politely at her verbal diarrhea, while she neurotically pours out all her frustration on them. Well, at least she had sex with somebody, so far as relationships and her sex life went, her sex life is way fucking better than my sex life turned out to be. So literally, I am lower than her, and it's really hard to imagine anyone being lower than her. She has even manipulated many people into feeling sorry for her. They would think, or they would assume actually, that her neurosis and this aloof, haphazard way of just doing things, that it's some kind of product of some trauma, or just some midlife crisis phase, just something temporary, and if they interact with her and soothe her, that it's gonna go away and she will return to normal. Except after a while, they realize that this is normal for her, that this is not some kind of temporary trauma, but that this is her, and that she sustains herself with all her self-absorption, and that she really doesn't care to listen to anyone but herself, and that's just what she is, and it can't be changed. And then all these altruistic people who made the mistake of feeling sorry for her, they just stray away. So her elderly mother ends up being her only companion because she's the kind of monster that only a mother could love.
Meanwhile, there are stories that, it's a witch hunt now in Oakland. They're trying to shut down any place that is not zoned to have residents.
What a hellhole.
Which includes warehouses and other sort of converted factories and buildings.
Well, the artists
and now the artists are all upset because they claim it'll further marginalize and displace them from scarce housing options.
You can't live your life not making any money. See, these artists have no money. That's why they live in these rat holes. And now, you're 35 years old and you're bitching that the city's going to enforce zoning laws, right? At least for now, because the national media is all over them.
Yeah.
So they're going to look like, no, look, see, we do this every day. Well, you can't live like this. You got to go get a real job and make some money. Your art doesn't sell. What are you, 8 years old? Well, these are all babies that are living in all these warehouses. They're artists. They're adults in their 30s who've never had a job, and they just want to sit and basically play with their Play-Doh is what it is in their little safe space. And so now that the outside world is saying, well, your childhood's over. Now you have to go out in the street and earn a living.
They talked to a performance artist who goes by the name of Lycan, L-I-C-H-E-N.
Yeah.
31-year-old who said, in order for us to create,
31.
sometimes we have to do it in places that aren't the most ideal or safe. It's
Creating
difficult
what?
for artists to pay to live here.
Creating what?
They're
Creating a lot of garbage art that no one's ever going to buy, never going to look at.
those strange things you see in modern museums that you stare at and say,
Except most of this stuff will never make it to a museum. Most of it sits in their disgusting warehouse until it burns down. Death traps are very romantic.
in the end, he moved in because of the creative community, and he pays only $400 a month rent.
How about getting work? Instead of you put it.
Now, the second person profiled is the one that caught my attention because she's the picture on the website. Her name is Joy Newhart. And when I saw her picture, when I first called up this story, I said, wait a minute. Artists? Oakland? This woman looks like she should be on Social Security. And sure enough, she's 60. And she's a dancer and choreographer. She also got evicted from the same place that good old Sam Code was, this 1919 Market Street. Paid $600 a month to live and work there. She's been able to find stable living since the building closed down. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, now you're 60 and you're still going to try to make it as a dancer and choreographer. There might be limited availability for
that's a small audience.
For the
and so we're supposed to feel sad because she can't find a place to live?
She can't now.